Welcome everybody. Thanks for attending the April 2025 DAAC meeting. My name is Austin Gray, Assistant Director of DelDOT Planning. Before we get into any of our business for this meeting, I do want to introduce our new Director of Planning who's here with us. I'm sorry to interrupt, but we now have Stephanie Johnson as our new Director of Planning. And give it to Steph to introduce yourself.
Oh yeah, well, thank you, Austin. Thank you so much for having me. It's my pleasure to be here. I've dabbled in the aviation space, I would say. I know Randall and Ben very well. I've been with the department for almost 29 years. I started my career in planning on the business side, and that's how I met Randall. And then 5 years ago, I came back to planning a second time as assistant director, in which I started working with Ben on the economic development of the Delaware terminal. So I'm still involved in that project. And then I was asked to step in as division director. The 31st, I think, was my first day of March. So I am essentially feel like I'm drinking from a fire hose, just trying to absorb as much as I can, time things that I know, and what I've learned in my experience throughout the department and being in planning. But I'm happy to be here. I do have to leave at 5 o'clock, but I'm happy to meet you guys and to get to know us and the business that we're doing and provide as much support as I can to the committee or the council.
Sure. Everyone can hear us online, right?
Say that again.
Yes. Okay.
We're having difficulty hearing Austin. I'm not sure why, but
Can you hear me now?
yes.
Speak up. All right, I'll speak to the microphone.
Project.
Okay, so we'll get to, yes, I need to project more. I don't know what I'm talking to, I can push for an hour more. Just to cut off the presentation. Every presentation we do starts with our mission statement, which is to provide excellence in transportation for every trip, every mode, every dollar, and every one. Certainly you all are here for aviation, and certainly that's one of the modes that we are focused on. We also start all of our presentations. I'm going to go a little bit out of order very quickly here because I very quickly pulled some slides in presentations I gave today at Delaware State University to their classes. So I don't know what order they're in on my slideshow, but I'll try to make it make sense. There and there. Okay, so as usual, we show the safety slide on our roadway transport fatalities. So year to date, we're at 20 fatalities, which is decreased from this time last year, decreased from this time 2 years ago. Of course, there's always more that we have to do, especially as the weather gets warmer and more people are on our roads going to the beach and traveling and all that kind of stuff. It's usually right around now, the numbers start to tick up more and more. So do all those things that you're supposed to do and don't take it for granted. We still remain one of the top states for pedestrian fatalities. So that's a huge focus for the department alongside everything else as well. Something new that we are implementing into all of our slides is what USDOT, FHWA, Federal Highway Administration is calling the safe system approach. And that's why I'm going to go ahead because I need to talk about that for a second. So this is that approach. Again, it's primarily roadway focused. I gave this presentation, part of the presentation to students today. I was like, how do I put this in each? Because this is about cars and roads and that kind of stuff. So I don't know what to do. I have to figure something out. The safe system approach, one policy that we've now adopted, really emphasizes kind of a multifaceted way of thinking about how we're trying to solve, primarily safety crisis, right, on our roadways. So looking at the 5 components of this: safer people, safer vehicles, safer speeds, safer roads, post-crash care, and then there's some defining kind of just characteristics overall of the methodology, ground, and size of the circles you can spin your head around and read. Make yourself dizzy. So when I gave this presentation to students today, I was like, okay, well, how do I make this relevant to aviation? Right. I think the big thing is that, we're looking at an interconnected system, right? And so no one's getting to an airport without driving on it, or driving on the road to get there, right? Or taking the train, or taking the bus, right? So all these modes are interconnected, right? Certainly you need to have safe road access in order to get to an airport, right? We look at overall safety trends, right? While roadway fatalities are relatively high, I think it's like around 40,000 annually in the whole country. Aviation's got a relatively strong safety record. Even with everything you see in the news, nowadays, still remains relatively safe. Areas where aviation supports disaster response, emergency services, so on and so forth. And certainly, if we can make aviation more accessible to people, pull them off of roads, especially in some of the rural areas, it's one less car trip and one less likely possible accident on the road, right? So aviation agencies are a key player in everything that we do transportation wise. And this kind of just touches on that a little bit more, right? So safer people, right? All the students that I was talking to today at Delaware State University, they're there to learn how to be good pilots, safe pilots, right? They're learning about how to safely and effectively manage the facility, right? So that training is super important, just embedding in them a strong safety culture. Certainly, we're taking cars off the road, as I said, fewer crashes, making the road safer overall. In the same vein, reducing or improving speeding, right? Taking cars off the road, high speed road travel. We talk about safer vehicles. We talk about, certainly that's primarily focused on cars in this instance, but there's, certainly the same standards for aircraft and in a lot of cases even more scrutiny. And then, the post-crash care is certainly just as important, right? There's almost never a serious car crash scene where you're going to see, if it's serious enough, you're not going to see someone being airlifted out of that scene, right? So, there's a strong role for aviation to play in this kind of state system approach that we're now adopting. So I won't probably go into depth that much every single time when we have these presentations, but this is the first time most of you are seeing it. It was like, it makes sense to try to loop in and hope it makes sense to everybody.
It does, and thank you for this.
Yeah. And I will actually turn it over to Lee now, if you wouldn't mind taking attendance. We haven't done that yet.
Sure. You get Jeff Corman.
Here.
Richard Horseman.
I see him online.
Okay. We got Robert Bryant.
Here.
Jeremiah Hardy.
Here.
Hassan Alexander.
Here.
Thank you. Matt Jordan.
Here.
Nick Ryan.
Here virtually. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. And Ben Clendon.
Present, finally.
And I just learned today that we do have a vacancy now in our education representative seats. So we'll be filling that next okay, so some quick updates from us. Bob Bryan's my met last week I think maybe
The week before, yeah.
Yeah, now that he is the new chair of the DAAC, to start discussing ways, just to make sure that you all are feeling supported in your role. And one of the outcomes of that discussion was we'd like to circulate a survey to all of you. Just ask about, what do you want to see at these meetings? How do you want these meetings to be run? What are things we should focus on? How can we improve communication? So I will be getting that out, by the end of the week, to everybody, and then, certainly you can get this back to us probably within the next month or so. It's 6 questions maybe.
Yeah.
Relatively straightforward, but just looking to make sure that you all have the resources and the tools that you need to be able to, your role is advisory, certainly, and I want to make sure that you all feel like you can effectively advise us in the decisions that we make. So that's that. I already introduced Stephanie. So we're excited to have her on board and become more familiar with what we're doing. A little bit of taste of it with the civil air terminal, now should be exposed to all of it.
Yeah, that's right.
Other administrative updates. As I said, I spoke today to 2 classes at Delaware State University, the aviation program. One was a pilot. Actually, I don't know what the second class was. The first one was an introductory seminar class. So that's, I think a good opportunity to just keep them aware of what we're doing and let them know that there are opportunities out there for them to do things that are not just flying plane, right? You certainly have Bryce and Tyler here with us as in terms of their students at Delaware State University. But it was a good discussion. I talked a lot longer than I thought it would be. It went well. Other administrative updates, just quickly, we are getting ready to apply for our next FAA assistant planning grant. So that grant will cover the next 2 calendar years of our aircraft operations county program, which we'll talk about last year's report in a second. And that'll also cover our next pavement management study. I have not done one of those yet. So I don't know the full details of what that entails, but Randall's done many of them. So we can talk about that, in the future. We can talk about it now. But just know that I'm applying, we're putting people together to apply for that, and that'll come from the FAA's AIP. So, anything I missed, though, you might think of? Okay. Let's move on to our old business. Very centered around meeting minutes from our January 15th meeting. Do I have a motion to approve those minutes?
I'll make a motion. A second.
Nick Ryan seconded.
Yes.
Gavel approved. All right. Any comments or concerns, questions about those meeting minutes? All right, and we'll move into the operations county program review, and I will turn it over to Randall to share the screen. And then at some point, we'll also bring up Bryce and Tyler to talk a little bit about what they've been doing, the exact presentations. So you should
Okay.
be able to share now, Randall.
Great. Let me share this. I'm not. Okay, can everybody see this thing that says Delaware Operations County Program?
Yes, we see it. We
Yes.
see it. Thank you.
Okay. I'll start, and Bryce and Tyler and Austin, you can jump in, when you feel the urge. We have an operation sampling program that uses noise meters, and most of you all are familiar with this. And the whole idea is to put these things out and get at least 2 weeks per season. There's 4 seasons, of course. Put those out at the airports, and then through statistical measures and using seasonal variations, get an annual number. The FAA pays for the nippiest airports, but they don't pay for the privately owned airports, or let's say the non-nippiest airports. They do pay for the others. So this is important because data is no longer in the FAA Form 5010. They don't have operational data. They don't have based aircraft data in there. So this is really our only source. And that's become important in our system planning process because we have to develop forecasts. And without data, it's pretty hard to do that. I didn't mention you guys by name, but Bryce and Tyler are gathering data. And I don't know if you all want to tell them what you're doing or have me just go through this.
Sure, I can talk about it. So, as a lot of you guys are already familiar, we had devices out in each of the airports, and they were a little bit different than they are now. So we made some updates to them. Had to replace the batteries in the solar panels. The solar panels were having some issues. As you can see in the picture, we have a new, more efficient solar panel, which connects to a slightly larger battery. And the devices are the same. The wiring is a little different. And ideally, this will keep it alive for the entire duration of the 2 weeks. And all we have to do is go to each airport and collect a SD card. And then we analyze the data. As of right now, we have a schedule set up. It's scheduled out for the next 9 weeks. Then repeats at week 5. And essentially what it is we go to each of your airports. There's 4 permanent installations. And those are be separated basically by north and south. So up north, we got Air Park and Summit. And Chandel and Smyrna share 1 device because we have 6 in total. 3 up north, 3 down south. For down south, our permanent installations are Coastal. You guys' is main airport, our main runway. It's 1. We also go to Corbin. You guys have 1. And then Laurel, your other runway at Coastal, and
water if you have high blood sugar because by trying to get rid of it, and the person's hydrated.
yeah, Jenkins, Laurel, Jenkins, and your other runway, they all share 1. So those will be getting 2 counts for the 9-week cycle, and all the other ones will be getting 3. And this will be a more efficient process, and we'll start seeing a lot more data as things roll out.
That's awesome.
The equipment, I'm sorry, Randall, the equipment itself, it is now anchored to the ground because we had a problem
Yeah.
in.
Yes.
Okay. good.
Yes.
We got some stakes. We put the stakes through the solar panels.
Much heavier.
Good.
Should be good, yes.
The-
Yeah, we had the same problem. I went, stood it back up and everything.
Yeah, the wind, it is like a tent, it can fly away unless it's got tent pegs.
Good.
So, yeah, very important to have that.
We put one out at Summit last summer, first time, and then it had rained in like weeks.
Yeah.
And then we went out there, and then that night, a massive storm came through, and it picked the solar panel up and flying across the runway and broke.
It's Chad.
We just, it hasn't rained in weeks, and now it happens.
Hmm.
But yes, now we know.
Good.
So we fixed that.
So the cool thing about this is we've been able to sample and get, data counts, which are going to be very important for our system planning effort that's ongoing. So we've got, in essence, I'm not going to read all the numbers here, but bottom line is there has been an increase overall in operations, even though Newcastle Airport, which we don't sample, but that comes from the FAA, actually, declined in total operations. So this is just a good measure for what's going on in the state aviation wise. If we're good, I'll move on into the statewide aviation system plan that we're
If I can just add, and I think it would be helpful if those numbers were sent to the airports too. I don't know that, but it helps us update our data. So really appreciate it.
Okay. We do, the neat thing is we do put out a report, and that report, I think, Austin, you can, email that basically, I guess, to the various airports. Does that work?
Appreciate that.
Okay. Just moving into the system plan, it'll be about a year and a half in the making. There's 9 tasks, and I'm not going to read all the tasks, but basically the first tasks, it's a normal planning process, but the first tasks are, defining issues, goals, and objectives, and doing an analysis of the existing system, and then forecasting aviation demand. The aviation issues we talked about last time, and there's just a number of things that we have to look at. FAA is, watching this program as well. One of the key things that we're doing this time around is integrating the advanced air mobility and vertiport planning process into the system plan. So that's something new that we're doing. And, uh, the aviation transportation goals that we have mirror those that are in the statewide, long term transportation plan. So but they're adapted to aviation. For the analysis of the existing system, we're looking at airport and heliport facilities, aeronautical activity, the surface access, socioeconomic things, and then technology, which includes the advanced air mobility type things, land use, and then statutes and regulations. The forecast, this really is one of the few system plans that we've done that actually has an airline forecast of actual airline. We did potential forecasts in the past, but this is actual enplanements and aircraft operations. We're also doing the normal forecast of GA activity and military demand as well. The TAF is the FAA's terminal area forecasts, and we're using those for airline and general aviation forecasts at the NIPIAS airports. Well, there's only 4 of them. So because we know that there's no more operations and based aircraft data from the 5010, then all of the non-NIPIAS airports, we have to use the operations counting program data that we have and look at historical growth and the TAF growth factors to forecast that activity. Just where we are in the process, we're sort of in the first 3 tasks, and there's basically another 6 to go. So we're a third of the way through, and that's just going to keep going through the next year, into the summer of 26. That's that. We have advanced air mobility. It's interesting. Yesterday, Austin and I spoke with Dr. Maedy from DSU, and he is running the Center for Advanced Air Mobility, and they do have a vision there for becoming a premier academic and research center for advanced air mobility, shaping the future of sustainability, autonomous and integrated aviation. Our focus really with the system plan is going to be sort of the physical side, which is the vertiport planning and infrastructure side, and some of the policy things as to what it is that, where we're going to get the money, what needs to happen to integrate this system. And again, we don't want to get out in front of the demand either. In other words, we don't want to have underutilized facilities, but we don't, again, want this thing to skip over Delaware. I mean, it is an important technology that's coming, and we want to make sure that we have that we're prepared for it, and that the state has adequate policy means to make sure that, for example, there's the grid, the electric grid is available to vertiports, for charging and that kind of thing. And this will also, we'll work with DSU on and the other schools as well on the workforce development and pilot training aspects of it as well. So that's a big, it's an interesting and new field, and we're going to tackle it in this system plan. We even developed a roadmap for how this thing works, and the first 5 years are the enabling part. The second 5 years are acceleration, and then the third is where we actually get into operational scalable type things that are going on. So all of those, this is all part of what we're going to be incorporating into the system plan. At that point, we could just open it up to questions and comments.
Randall, I was surprised to hear you say that the FAA no longer records based aircraft or aircraft operations on the airport master record. I must have missed something because that's come as a total shock and surprise to me.
I know, and it's very disconcerting when we've relied on that for years and years, and now, we're on something else. We can't. We have to go to other sources in order to get that information.
And the FAA used that information to categorize general aviation airports also.
Well, they apparently still do have information like that because they use it in the terminal area forecasts.
Okay.
So, but they're just not publishing it in the 5010s any longer. And basedaircraft.com has based aircraft information, but there's access issues if you're not qualified for access. So it is a difficult situation there. And right now, for the nippiest airports, we can use the TAF, the terminal area forecasts. But for the non-nippiest airports, where they used to have all this information as well, it's not available, which is why one of the great reasons that we are doing this counting program now in Delaware. It's a great supplement for any of the planning stuff that we're going to be doing.
Randall, Ben, yeah, I agree. I didn't know about the operations in the 5010, but the base aircraft I know, and unfortunately we have to create an account for each separate airport, except for Wilmington because it has air service. But I think the counting program, it's great. We rely on those numbers across the board for everything operationally, including insurance applications, things like that. So
Yeah.
it's a good number to have for our basis. I wanted to touch on one of my big things right now is land use. And really, the recommendation of taking a look at Delaware law when it comes to obstructions and property around airports and making sure that we're doing what we've got to do to protect that.
Absolutely.
I know there's legislation out there, there's currently law out there, but really taking a hard look to update that and make sure it matches what the FAA has out there.
I think that's a great idea because one of the things we're doing in the system plan right now, and Lee, Christian, and my team is looking into all the existing legislation that's out there, the code and the regulations. But I agree. I think a lot of it's outdated, and we need to use the system plan as a forum for designing what it is that's going to be effective to protect airports from encroachment. And I think that's that's sort of it will be part of the steps coming up here. Any other questions? I guess we can move it back to give it back to Austin.
One other thing, Randall, I know you reached out on the air service side, but you're right, this will truly be the first time based on the checkered history of Wilmington and air service. And, I'll talk a little bit once we talk about individual member update, but really looking at, grabbing some stability in air service here in Delaware. And hopefully we get that and we've got some good numbers to base that on as we move along to the future.
That is an exciting thing, and it hopefully, you know, the low cost model is going to succeed, and that's the, you know, we're hoping that that is the sort of the answer to the big sucking sound in Philadelphia that grabs all, you know, the passengers and sucks them that direction.
A lot of challenges, I think, in the short term here, but we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I'd love to hear about all that you're doing, you know, when we get to the update portion.
Absolutely.
Any other comments or questions? Great. The only other update that I was going to provide was an update on our state funding program. And nothing really new substantively here. This fiscal year, though, we did select 6 projects for funding. So those projects have been moving forward and are going. And then starting July 1, we'll be accepting applications for the next round of funding for projects for next year. So certainly, you know, start to think about those projects. Now that we've got a nice system set up that for the most part worked this past fiscal year for the private land facilities. You know, I think it'd be, you know, it's smooth sailing moving forward. So we will be moving forward with that. Like we did this past year. Any questions on that? And we will move into the individual member updates. Read off names as you don't. Let's start with Jeff Corman.
Hello, everybody. At Laurel, the clearing project is done on the north end of the runway. They did a nice job. So took over that. Runway lights, everything is working great. We're getting ready to get in our busy season spraying, so that's good. At Corman, we have not done, and it's just been too cold to do the ceiling project. AWALS is working great. So got that up. Every now and then we'll get our dot on 4-flight. It's not all the time yet. So still working on that with the software. I did have the trees cut down on the east side of the airport, which really doesn't have anything to do with the airport. It was a farm we bought, and just the hedgerows never been maintained. So it joins right up to the property there of the airport. So I think I've showed Austin before. And then on the north end of the airport, across the Andrewsville Road, we had those 6 or 7 acres cut down as well, clear cut. And I'm meeting with Austin about that coming up, just so he can look at what we want to do there. So got that done, and I'm just talked to the electric co-op today. I was at their board meeting, and they're going to give me a price for taking those wires down as well. So that'll clear that whole north end of the for like 2 miles. Won't have any obstacles. Yeah, so things are moving on my project list anyway. So yeah.
That's great.
Richard Horseman, any updates from you?
I do not have any new updates. Thank you.
Thank you. Brian.
Yes, at the Delaware Coastal Airport just this week, we issued a notice to proceed to the prime contractor who was awarded the construction contract for the first phase of our new full-length parallel taxiway for our primary runway 422. I think I've mentioned this many times before. This is the first construction phase of what's going to require 3 additional follow-ups to complete that project. It's a multi-year, multi-grant project. It's frustrating when it takes you 4 years to complete a AIP eligible airfield capacity project, but those are the realities of the FAA today. We also just recently issued a notice to proceed to remark all the runway and taxiway markings on the airport, $78,000 bid award. It's not cheap to paint your runways and taxiways. And we're also working with the FAA. You know, we continue to work with the FAA in submitting an application to our former Senator Tom Carper's General Aviation Runway Extension pilot program. We have no idea what the future of that program is going to be in the current environment happening in DC right now. We're just waiting for a word from the FAA on that program. It was interesting to hear from our airport consultant engineering firm, Delta Airport Consultants, when they announced to or told us yesterday that this federal fiscal year, the FAA has not issued a single AIP grant yet. So, you know, we're all kind of waiting, fingers crossed, to see what that's going to turn out with as we get into the latter part of fiscal year 25 and phase 2 construction of our taxiway project, because we're getting ready to bid that out. In fact, it's actually on the streets right now for bids. But so, you know, fingers are crossed, just kind of waiting to see what's going to happen.
Yeah, and that's thanks for mentioning that. And I should have mentioned at the start, my updates. I was at the NASEO Washington DC conference in February. State aviation officials and staff. And I did ask about the pilot program. I was told that to expect around May. It's unusual around pilot programs. Start to release information. So that's my timeline, my understanding. So I'll certainly be on the lookout for things as well.
Good.
And I do also, I'm pretty sure one of the topics of discussion was, you know, last year in the reauthorization, they increased the authorization for AIP, but they were going to continue to pass these continuing resolutions. That number didn't match what they reauthorized. And I believe in their continuing resolution they passed in the middle of March, they did include the $4 billion for AIP. So it was one of few anomalies in their next budget. So for what it's worth, there is that. They did authorize and appropriate the money that they should have.
Right.
That's all I'll say about that.
Yeah.
So that's. Jeremiah Hardy, any updates from you?
No updates at this time other than Sean Weber is no longer with Summit Aviation, so he will no longer be the second.
Okay, thank you. We'll connect with you to coordinate an alternative.
All right, roger that.
All right, thank you. Ms. Lasan Alexander, any updates?
Hi, I have no updates at this time. Next meeting.
Great, thank you so much. Matt Jordan, any updates from you?
No, it's business as usual here at Dover Air Force Base. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Nick Ryan, any updates from you?
No, Austin, yeah, everything's good, business as usual. I just wanted to wish everybody a fantastic weekend.
Thank you.
Happy Easter.
That's right.
And then last but not least, Mr. Ben Clandaniel.
That's how I like it. So speaking on authorized funding with the FAA, you know, we're like everyone else holding breath, but I will say a lot of the industry groups are out there asking airports to get the congressional delegation, their representation to sign on to letters that are going to make sure that what was authorized will continue, especially in the 2026. So, you know, it's fingers crossed, the money is still flowing, projects are still going on for us. So, but anything anyone can do, you know, at the state level and at each individual airport, keep pushing your congressional delegation for that. For ILG, really the big things, the projects we've got going on, we have a 6,000 square foot terminal expansion. That was part of the Bill Terminal Funding Project that was released last year. And so we are full speed on that. I mean, my office shakes every day as we're doing foundations, so. And on the other side, airfield projects, those are continuing on. Won't get too much into detail on those. As alluded to with the state system plan update, really trying to just, put in consistency with air service for the state. We've not had a time where we actually in February, for the first time ever, exceeded 24 months of air service in this state. So that's a big goal for us.
It's a milestone.
It is. It's a milestone. Now, there's no consistent data, and Randall, I think I told you this, that we went from a one-based aircraft schedule to two-based, and we went back to one base, now we're back to a two-base. And so we do know the schedule out through November is a two-base aircraft schedule, so we're hoping to get consistency with numbers that show true stability. I have nothing to, relate to the year prior, right? Everything looks like high growth, right? But it's really artificial with two aircraft.
Right.
And talking about a Velo schedule, so that's out through November, but we've had some recent changes on the schedule. Again, they're an ultra low cost carrier. They're seasonal. Markets come, markets go. They did remove Atlanta and Concord, North Carolina, which was the Charlotte market. I'm not really sure there's a surprise to that in their model, but we did get Raleigh-Durham and Nashville return next month, which I know a lot of folks were excited about Nashville. And then we added Jacksonville. So we have Jacksonville, which is a top mark on our air service development list. So we're glad they're listening some to us.
That's great.
We're excited about that news. As far as the Dover airports, Steph's already left. On the civil air terminal side, we continue to work with both DelDOT and Kent Economic Partnership, right? Looking at, development potential and some parcels next to the civil air terminal. I think probably Steph has a little bit of a sigh of relief getting that joint use agreement finished up last year. At Delaware Airport, and really the big thing is it's projects for us. We're actually about to start our apron expansion phase 2. That's a federally funded project. And then a long delay on this one. We're about to start. It's connected box hangars. It's 5 connected box hangars on a T hanger pad that we had built. And this week we actually used our bill entitlement dollars for that we've banked up. So that could go to revenue producing, which is really good. It's been delayed because of steel for a while. So we're excited to get that going.
That's good.
All right, that's everyone on our list. Something else that I forgot to mention in my updates at the beginning, giving my individual member update, is that we, DelDOT just recently restructured health pad out front. So I was in use some PLC. It's done. Check it out when you guys leave. Looks pretty good. Otherwise, that's it for individual member updates. Is there anyone online from the public? Okay, if no one has anything else, I will adjourn our meeting. Thank you all so much for being here and enjoy your weekend. And we'll see you in July. Our next meeting is July 23rd.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
You too.
Great job.